In this lesson, I want to run through a little bit more about HTML and how we use it and what it's being used for. So typically with HTML, we would use web editors. And there's a number of different browsers that typically would be accessing websites. So one of the most popular ones is Google Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Internet Explorer, and then all the way down Opera and Android browser. So keeping this in mind, make sure that your website can, if you've got a lot of your visitors are coming in maybe on Opera, or if they're using a mobile device like an Android browser, make sure that your website is going to be able to work within those different browsers. So always take that into consideration, and before you launch your website, test it out on the browser that your typical web visitors would be using. And as we can see in this diagram from Wikipedia, that typically Google Chrome is one of the more popular ones. So basically, here's some more information about what HTML is, and you can find out all the different information about all the different HTML tags at w3.org. There's also a ton of information online, so there's really a lot of information online about HTML. And in this course, I really want to focus on some of those core tags and elements that we'd use typically most often within web pages. So this is where the focus of the course is going to be, and we're also going to be designing our web pages based around HTML5. So what happened is originally when HTML5 came along, it took over some of they had more of a semantics for some of the elements and tags that were being used. So they presented them in a smarter way and added a whole bunch of new tags for us to use. So there's a really good set of information over here at HTML5 from Wikipedia, and it'll show you all the different changes and the new tags. So the basics of web pages, they're based around the fundamental cores, concepts of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So this is the foundation of web pages. Every web page is going to be based around HTML. So this is what the structure of your website looks like. So think of it as a building. So when you're constructing a building, you build out the frame, and this is what HTML is. So you've got a bunch of different rooms. If you're building a house, you've got you frame out all your different rooms. You roughly have an idea of what you want to look like. So you've got that build, and then you apply CSS, which is the styling. So this is what your actual building looks like, your house looks like, the different paint that you're going to put on the walls, the different flooring, and so on. And then JavaScript is that functionality. So if you've got a building and you've got some elevators and all of that different added functionality, that just really brings that content to life, and this is what the purpose of JavaScript is. So three basic core concepts of web development. So in the last lesson, we looked at meta tags, we looked at how we can add comments, we looked at titles and doc types. So now we want to talk about so we looked at the different types of HTML tags that we can have and elements, and now we want to look at the actual content structuring for HTML. So there are different ways to present the content. We briefly looked at paragraphs, line breaks, and now I want to go over headings as well within this section. And as we can see here, there's 6 different types of headings, starting with H1 being the largest, and this is really to emphasize content within your web page, and then going down to H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. So the proper way to use heading tags is it's obviously within your body content, and you would add in heading tags atop of each section of content that you would be representing. So this would be a main header for that content. A lot of times you're going to see the page titles as H1s. So these are really utilized for SEO purposes. And when it comes to headings, you would start with your H1, and then you would have H2s after that. And if you had any other sections or pieces of content here that you want to break up, then you would add them in as H3s underneath the H2s, because they progressively get smaller. So we can see that the way that the content gets represented, you might have a whole bunch of H3s, and if you want to go to the next level, then it would be H4, and then you can have another set of H3s. So you'd have another H2, another H3, and so on. So this is typically how we would structure our headings. Very rarely you're going to get past 4, past 5, because a lot of times that's getting to be a lot of content, and you don't want to place them too closely together, as I've right now done, because it's going to be really confusing. So they're used to highlight content within your web page. So I'm going to add in some typical paragraphs here, and I'm going to open up dummy text generator. So this is where we can generate some quick dummy text. So it'll make a lot more sense when I add this in as paragraphs here. So if I had a whole bunch of paragraphs here, we would see how the headings now are going to stand out within the web page. So we see that this is the purpose of the headings, where we would have a heading, we'd have some content, and really it wouldn't make sense or look good if we had an H1 and if we had H1s over and over again. So use those sparingly. Try to stick to only one per web page, and use the additional heading sizes as you progress down of importance of content, as well as the way the content gets structured and represented. And then also we've thrown in the paragraphs. So paragraphs are opening and closing, and paragraphs are the type of tags that you don't want to enclose within another paragraph. So we see that a lot of different HTML tags, it's about nesting them within other HTML tags, but we don't do this for paragraphs, because paragraphs are seen as the end level, the end level of content splitting. So we typically wouldn't split another paragraph in a paragraph, but however, we can add in additional types of tags as well within those paragraphs to really break up that content and represent it as we want it output within our web page. And we're going to talk about spans in the upcoming lessons as well. So this is the headings and also line breaks. So whenever you need a line break but you don't want to start a new paragraph, you can do it that way. And this is just to demonstrate. So I've got the line break there, breaking up that content, and then I've got everything else according to headings and then paragraphs.